On air.
Hello, and welcome to episode 7 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about books, authors in the industry. And tonight I am joined by Archer Caldwell and Michael Laron, and we have a special guest tonight, Lisa Stull. Hello, Lisa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
I'm so happy you're here because otherwise I would have been the special guest host this week.
You're still special.
Yeah, Archer's been missing for a couple weeks, so it's good to have him back. And good to have you here too, Lisa.
Thank you.
So as usual, what we start usually with is what we've been reading. So do you want to go first, Lisa? What have you been reading lately?
Sure. Well, actually, I've been listening. I'm kind of addicted to Audible. So I started Good Omens, which I don't know if you've actually listened to the audiobook, but oh my God, it's fantastic. I think the narrator is Martin Jarvis who does it, and he's really great. So I'm about 3/4 of the way through that, and I already know that I want to reread that book, the actual paper version after this. It's fantastic. So
Cool. That's one of the ones that's on my kind of list of books that I like to reread. I'd like to reread it again, so maybe I'll go with the Audible.
yeah, well, and I found that that's kind of a neat thing. Listening versus actually reading is a little different experience, so it's fun. So.
Yeah, it's hard sometimes to find time to sit down and read.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Whereas I find myself, wandering around the house, if you're doing the dishes or cleaning or whatever, listening to music. I should try maybe get through some books faster by doing that too.
Yeah, it helps. You can do it while you're working out, cleaning, driving. Yeah, it's great.
Michael, Archer, have you guys both read Good Omens?
No, I haven't.
Oh, you need to.
Yeah, you have to. I think, so we won't spoil anything, but I think, I'm sure you're past this part, but one of my favorite parts in that book is when he gets the dog for his birthday.
Oh, yes. Oh, my God, yes.
So again, I'll try not to spoil anything, but for those of you who haven't read the book, the book is about basically an incompetent Satanist accidentally sends the son of Satan home with the wrong family from the hospital. And so it's about what happens when this child is raised by just a normal family as a normal kid, and as he gets a little bit older, weird things start to happen, and the four horsemen of the apocalypse are making their way there, and there's two angels that are trying to figure out what's going on. But anyway, I can't remember what birthday it was, but for one of his birthdays when he's young, his present basically from dear old dad is like a hellhound.
Yes.
And the hellhound, the behavior of the dog will be determined by whatever the kid names it. So if he names it, I don't know, killer, it'll be a killer. If he names it, I don't know, slasher, it'll also be a killer, I guess. So what he decides to name the dog is pretty interesting. So I won't spoil it for you.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite parts of the book.
The book is hilarious. I mean, it's hilarious.
And that's Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett writing together.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
For anybody who doesn't know, I think there's been talk over the years of them doing a sequel, but I don't know if they'll ever actually get around to that.
Yeah, I just finished Neverwhere by him as well,
Okay.
and Neil Gaiman actually narrated that one. That was the audiobook I listened to, and that was fantastic. That's one I want to revisit too. He's got so many characters in there that you kind of have to go back and reacquaint yourself with all of them because you miss some things. So.
For sure. Have you read The Ocean at the End of the Lane?
No, I have that on my Kindle, so I definitely I've now bought all of his books because I'm just I'm addicted. I have a problem.
You should go back and read the old Sandman comic books.
Oh,
Good stuff.
I need to quit my
Those are a lot of
job.
fun.
We all need to quit our jobs.
Yeah, just be homeless and read all day long.
Sure. Yeah, there's lots of homeless people in the library close to where I work, so I can just go hang out with them and read all day.
Yeah.
So anything else you've been reading these days, Lisa?
Well, everything else that I've been reading, unfortunately, has been very boring. I do consulting work for businesses. I do psychological profiling, so I won't bore you with the case studies that I've been reading for that.
So you do profiling yourself?
Yes, I do.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Did you happen to watch? There was a new show. I think we said we weren't going to talk about TV, but
Here we
there
go.
was a new show on this year called Blacklist.
Oh, I heard that, but no, I
Watch
haven't
that?
seen that. No.
One of the main characters is a profiler, so
Oh, that's awesome.
that's a great show.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out.
Cool. So how about you, Michael? What have you been reading?
I have I just finished finally 10 years in the making The Botany of Desire by Michael Pollan.
Oh,
Okay.
I downloaded that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff. I really like the last couple of chapters. So I finished that. I talked about that in a previous episode. I just started reading a book by Rosanna Atreya. It's called The Temple Is Not My Father. She's an author from India, and she's been writing, she writes novels, but this is I think it's like a short novella. She's a member of the Alliance of Independent Authors, and she had asked for some folks to read the book. So I'm checking that out, and it's about, I'm only about 10% of the way into it, but it's about I think it's like an arranged marriage, and it's about like the family, and it's got a lot of family dynamics, and the main character, her father kind of abandoned her when she was born, and so she's kind of going through and trying to figure out who she is, where she's come from, and it's an interesting family story, and look forward to finishing that here pretty soon. And I'm also, yeah, it's pretty cool. She's a really good author, and I'm also rereading Treasure Island from our conversation last week
Good
with
one.
Patrick.
Yep.
Yeah, I just had to read it. I usually read it every summer, so I just figured I'd start again and reread it. Our conversation had me wanting to reread Long John
Got you
Silver
thinking
again,
about it,
so-
eh?
Oh yeah, it's good stuff.
Cool.
Nothing like a good reread over the summer.
Yeah.
For sure. So if I'll note just real quick, we've got a couple of comments here from Quotidian Light saying good evening. Hello, Maya. And Alternating Current says, look how cute LM Stull is. She's so smiley.
Aw.
Great so far.
Hi, Leah.
So I'm just popping in the comments here for a second. Did Archer, it looked like he froze there for a minute. Are you back, Archer? There he is. He's moving now. Okay. So I know you've been busy with work for the last 2 or 3 weeks. Have you had any time to read anything that isn't work-related?
Well, similar to what Lisa did, I re-listened to Afraid by Jack Kilborn. It was something that I've been reading a lot of accounting pronouncements and things that would just put you to sleep. So it's late enough at night, we don't need to do that. But derivative accounting it's a scorcher. Anyways, no, so Afraid by Jack Kilborn, I also on Audible, and the one thing that I found interesting towards the end but distracting in the beginning is it's performed more than read. Not that there's anything wrong with the performance. I know that sometimes that adds a little bit to the story, but one person doing all the voices, and some of the voices he nailed and some of the voices he
Not
didn't.
so much.
But anyways, it's a story about a small town in Wisconsin, and there is a black ops team that descends upon the town, and there are just a couple of innocent bystanders that need to figure out why this tranquil lake side town in northern Wisconsin is basically being besieged by the military. And so it's a neat story that it's right up my alley as far as action and trying to figure out what's going on. But I also wanted to take another listen at it specifically because we were talking this week about rereading something. So I've read Frankenstein repeatedly, even just I guess 3 or 4 weeks ago now. I read it for I don't know, 10th, 12th, 14th time. And that's one of the ones that I just go back to. I like the story; it's a good story. But for me this time, it's I'm trying to write a story, and I want to pay homage to Frankenstein. So I reread it, and then I will reread Elmore Leonard religiously. And so this one, I wanted to kind of pick something that I could say I reread it for the sake of rereading, whether it was to be studious of it or to just kind of say, hey, would a story that you don't necessarily follow intimately the first time catch your attention a little bit better the second time around? And it's still a good story. I liked it, but it wasn't anything that was like, oh gosh, I never saw that one coming. So maybe the fact that it was performed instead of me reading it, things are just jumping off at the page, because that's the one limitation is you'll get from the story as much or as little as the voice actor wants to give you. You know, if there's something that he can or she can kind of just, you know, mute a little bit, and they'll do that. If it's something that they really want to pronounce, you know, you're just going to get their take on it.
Okay. So we're just looking in the comments again there. So that's it for your reading right now?
Yeah,
Okay.
Unless you want to talk about FASB 133.
You mute your mic, and you can talk about that all you want. So, I was kind of remiss with my reading this week. I had one of those bad weeks where I did read but didn't actually finish anything. So, so what I'm reading right now is it's a steampunk book called Discovering Aberration by S.C. Barris. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that right. I mentioned it briefly last week that I'd be starting to read it. Unfortunately, I just didn't get through it. It's good so far. I'm about 30% of the way through. It's reminds me a lot of sort of King Kong there, where the first sort of chunk of the book is them getting ready to go to the island where amazing things are going to happen. And it's very, very well written. Just it's taking a while to get there, and but I have a feeling that the payoff is gonna be good. So I'm gonna finish that one up this week and talk about it some more next week and review it.
Cool.
That's awesome.
So unfortunately, nothing finished, but that'll give us plenty of time to talk about rereading books. So rereading, Lisa. You reread. Sounds like you reread a lot.
Oh my God, I'm like it's a problem because you know, I really related to something that Michael said in his little snippet, was that there's so many authors that I want to read, and there's like millions of books I want to devour, but yet I'm so moved by some of the books that I have read that I just can't help but go back and like dissect them more. I tend to read books that are a little bit more deep, more profound, where the meaning that the author is trying to get across is kind of hidden, and you don't really start to discover it until you've kind of, you know, weeded through the character and the plot. Once you familiarize yourself with all of that, you really start to get into what they, you know, have intended. So, I mean, Faulkner was he's my all-time favorite, and most people who have read him are like, what? The first time they've read his book. So, I don't think I started to even understand what the man was talking about until like the 5th time I read, you know, his book. So,
okay.
Yeah, I reread a lot.
No, I'm like that with Shakespeare as well. I mean,
oh yeah, he's a great example. Yeah.
And you, like the 7th, 8th time of getting through Macbeth, you really start to see some of the things behind the scenes.
Yeah, because once you know what's kind of going on, you start picking up even movies. You know, it's the same thing. Once you know the gist of it, you start to pick up all the little things, and I'm addicted to those little things. And as a writer, that's kind of what I focus my writing on. So in a way, it's research by rereading, you know, people that influence me. You know, I can learn how I can weave those elements into my own stories and tales.
So as a writer, would you say that the reading that you do shapes how you want to write going forward, as opposed to just I like to read and I want to write in the same genre?
Definitely shapes. I mean, I've wanted to kind of do that. You know, stream of consciousness writing, because I'm you know, I love the human mind. I think it's just absolutely crazy and brilliant, and my writing really wasn't there to do that, but I've actually started now writing, you know, short stories that are all just purely stream of consciousness, and so I think being able to read, you know, writers who've done that over and over and over again, you start to familiarize yourself with, oh, that's how they're picking up on thoughts and how they're pulling that together and making a you know, intriguing story out of it. So
then would you say that becoming a writer changed the way you read a book?
Oh, most definitely. Yeah, I definitely read it with a totally different, you know, angle now. I mean, now it's not. Before it was just enjoyment of the story, and in some ways, becoming a writer has ruined reading a little bit, because I look at it as a writer. I'm like, ooh, if I was writing this, either I would change it, or ooh, I want to write a story like that. So, just kind of looking at from a research perspective, like what the author did to develop their plot or their characters, or describe, and you know, all of that. So yes, it's definitely altered.
You start to pick up on stuff for sure, don't you?
Yeah.
Especially the foreshadowing, I find, is
Yes.
something that jumps out a lot in books where some small thing will happen in chapter 1 or chapter 2 of a book, and you're like, oh, that's going to be important.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and what's amazing is to do that correctly. I love it when authors, it's just a tiny little detail, and you're like, for some reason, I feel like I'm going to need to remember that.
Yeah, for sure.
It's not something really big. It's just a tiny thing, and then 8 chapters later, you're like, I knew it. So, yeah.
Is that
So I read a lot.
that's Chekhov's gun, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
But then I
so
also I like to reread during certain times of the year. You mentioned reading Treasure Island over summer. Like Christmas, I always read. Truman Capote has a collection of little short stories for the holidays. I think it's two of them deal with Christmas and one Thanksgiving. So that's kind of like a tradition, And I don't necessarily take anything away from that as a writer, but I enjoy it. It's like how I know the holiday season has begun is because I sat down and read that. So
That's cool.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that when you reread the first time through, it's kind of like going to an amusement park. Like you go on a ride and it's like, oh man, that was awesome. And then you go on the ride again because it was awesome, but you really start to see the nuances of it.
Yeah.
And how cool it is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the same thing with writing. Like for me, I don't reread Treasure Island because it helps my writing, but it kind of becomes a part of me.
Yes.
The language and the rhythm and the writing style. It really gets. There's just something to be said about that, especially with writers like Capote and Faulkner. Where it's just so dense that it needs more than one read to really absorb.
Yeah. It's I reread Leah in the comments. They have an author, Eric Schonkweiler, who he wrote. He just published his book this year, and it's insane. I've read his book 3 times already. And he's a great example of one of those. He's amazing. He doesn't have any punctuation or anything like that in his writing, and the story is actually kind of about a barren landscape, and his writing is very barren, but yet underneath that barren landscape is it's pure gold, and you start to discover that. Like the second time I read it through, once I knew what the characters were doing and where the plot was, I kind of got all those subtle little things that he was weaving into the poetry of that book. And so I love it when people can do that, can take something simple and make it extraordinary. So it's
Sean Quirel's book looks really interesting. It reminded me. I read like the first couple of pages, and after his interview with Buddy last week, but it reminded me of Grapes of Wrath meets Cormac McCarthy's The Road.
Yes.
It was very interesting. There's no punctuation or anything, but you don't really need it. It's just kind of spare. And I think a book like that would really benefit from rereading. Because there's just so much there. So much between the lines.
I love it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I love that.
Cool. What about you, Archer? Are you a big rereader?
Maybe not big, but I would say with what I have to do for Realm and Sands and Collective Inkwell, I do a lot of rereading of their stuff. So from their last Realm and Sands release, actually comes out Thursday, July 24th, by the Dream Engine. I have read that 4 times already.
You look so excited about it too. Yay!
Yes, Thursday, July 24th, you can buy and read it, and then reread it, and then reread it. The Dream Engine by Sean Platt and Johnny Bistro. But in the month of June, I read it 4 times. But a lot of that was because I do continuity editing. I don't know if you know that.
Right.
Lisa, I do that stuff for them, and so I read the first crack at it, and I guess for the way that they did it, again, I know I talked about it before, but they did a Kickstarter campaign, and they showed everything that they did live, or as live as possible, writing it. So you could have definitely read every iteration of the draft yourself, but when I went through things, I had to go through from just a basic continuity perspective, and then I started adding things in. And so once you start saying move this elsewhere, you need to make sure that there were no unintended consequences. So just the best way to do that is read the whole dang thing from start to finish again, and you read fast. So
Wow. I can't really say that I'm jealous of you for doing that. Yeah.
oh, it's so fun.
I would be horrible at that. I'd probably add more problems.
No, it was so fun, and I think the Beam season 2, which was another serialized fiction by Sean Platt and
I
Johnny
love the
Truman.
Beam. Yeah.
The Beam season 2 I went through 3 times before that one went live, and then because I started their continuity stuff with the Beam season 1, and then I started doing other stuff, and then the Beam season 2 was the first one that I ever got before it went out. So that one was crunch time, just to see how fast you can actually deliver on something productively. Otherwise, you're just going, yeah, it was a really good story. I liked it.
What about when you're for pleasure? I mean, I'm sure that was fun, but
no, I do. But I like Shakespeare. I don't tie it to any season. But I definitely have gone through and reread. I probably scenes more than stories. I will go through, and if you look at any paperback or paper-based book, it's just got dog ears and highlights, and so there's definitely times where I want to go back and reread a chapter or reread a scene, and if that's the writer in me, just to say, I really like the way that they framed this, moment of exasperation, and I want to know how did that author build up from, just start to finish, and why do you care so much that this person is pissed off or excited or whatever? And so from a book perspective, no, I agree with Michael that there are just a boatload of readers out there, and as someone who wants to be read, I don't want to do the disservice of rereading someone when there's someone else that hasn't been read at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I definitely will go through and study scenes that I know got me more interested or excited or scared or whatever.
Yeah, I think I kind of do a little bit of the same thing, but maybe a little less with scenes, and for me more with like the style. So I'll use George V. Higgins as an example. Have you guys read him?
No.
They just one of his books was a movie last year. I think it was The Friends of Eddie Coyle. They turned into a movie, but the movie was called something different. But and then there's The Rat on Fire. There's 4 or 5 books of his. But basically, I would keep his books on the shelf as basically a dictionaries of how to do dialogue properly, because like it seems like 90% of his books are all just dialogue, and with also a lot of like language specific to the area and stuff like that. So when I was reading those, I was like, I have to keep this. So if I ever have a question about how to do dialogue properly, just crack one of these open and read a couple pages.
See, and I think I'm probably the opposite in the sense of I was a screenwriter before trying to make it as an author. So you're right. I mean, is dialogue, Joe moves to the left and then talks for a whole lot. But I need to go back and understand, how did Joe go to the left, and what did he think, and what did he do? And so, that's where I'll kind of go back and say, how did you frame it? Because I'm not saying I'm a beautiful dialogue writer, but if I have a strength, it's that.
For sure. I'll run through some of the. So I don't reread much of. I was saying there's always something new, and I most of the time would rather discover something new. But there are a couple books that I sort of keep on the side if I ever need something to read and just can't find something. Sometimes you just kind of need to level set, I guess, or go back to something you know. And so we already talked about one of my favorites, which is Good Omens. The other one that I have on my sort of yearly list, if I can get to it, is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card.
Good
stuff.
That's
I've read that
awesome.
like 5 times.
Yeah.
Archer must have his mic muted because he should have weighed in there too. Have you read it?
No.
No. You got to put that on your list.
Yeah, it's a good book. It really is.
It's fantastic. Yeah.
Anticlimactic as hell, but it's a good book.
It's got a little bit of the Hobbit ending, right? Where,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's one I can always go back to, and because it's a book that I love to reread, that's probably the biggest reason why I haven't bothered to watch the movie.
Right.
Because there's always that chance that the movie can ruin the book, so I'm
Yes.
not really willing to take that chance. I heard kind of mixed reviews on that one. And the other one on my sort of ready to go at any time rereads would be Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Oh, that's a great
I
one.
do like that. That's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Everybody's read that, right? So,
yeah, yeah.
and those are fiction. I had also mentioned in our blog post that someday I'd like to go back and reread The Stand, but I mean that's massive. That's a massive time suck for that. And probably the other one I mentioned is Stephen King's On Writing.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That's one
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that
But again,
deserves
I need to
fiction.
reread that too.
nonfiction and just sorry, did you say reread or read, Michael?
Reread. I've read
Reread. Okay, so you've read it. Yeah, fantastic
Yeah.
book.
it. Yeah.
Okay.
I want to go back and reread all the classics from like my youth because I haven't done that. So
Oh,
Barnes
yeah.
and Noble made the mistake of having those sales where like you buy two get 18 free or whatever it is. So I walked out like I spent like $30 and had 180 books and I was like, yeah, I have no time for this, but yeah, one day maybe.
I'd be totally ruined
Those
if
editions are so good though.
Yes. Yeah. Like I want to read all the Sherlock Holmes because I got into Sherlock the show. So I was like, oh, I want to go back and reread that. I haven't read that since I was a kid, and I think I'll definitely take something away differently. Hopefully, I'm a little bit more mature than I was when I was 10 when I read
I
it.
did the same with Agatha Christie. I've
Oh,
read
yes.
it as an adult, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's. I mean, some of them are dated. I mean, she wrote them a long time ago, but
Yeah.
very, very well crafted story, worth reading again from a more educated or mature point of view.
Yeah.
I could see going back for myself
I
and
agree.
rereading the Raymond Chandler books because those are ones that
Oh, yeah.
I blew through when I kind of got interested in noir, read Raymond Chandler and Dashiell Hammett. But I feel like there's probably more I could have taken away from them. Reading, 8 books in a short period of time just to kind of get a sense of the genre more than anything. It'd be nice to go back and really kind of take in the story a little bit more.
Yeah. I might
Strangers
be
on a
crazy,
Train.
but yeah. I want to reread Moby Dick. I read it 2 years ago. And
That's awesome.
I loved it.
That's funny that you said
Moby
that
Dick
because
is awesome.
I made a note earlier because I was going to kind of ask the opposite question. So it's funny you said Moby Dick. I was going to ask the question if sort of the opposite of do you reread books, I was going to ask if there's any book in your arsenal that you are reading or have tried to read that your white whale, basically. So, and I'll give you mine. I've been reading Don Quixote by November this year will probably be 2 years I've been reading that book. and it's not because I don't like it. It's just it sits on the shelf, and I for a long time there, it was like I'm just going to read a chapter of this a day and get through it, right? Because it's a book, it's a classic. I want to read it, and I just kind of got out of the habit and haven't gone back to it. And it's nothing like I expected, although I'm like enjoying it a great deal. But so that's kind of been my white whale for over a year and a half now, is just to get through this damn book. You guys
Don
have anything
Quixote,
like that?
Well, with Don Quixote, the translation is really important because there are a lot of crappy translations of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that might make a difference because I've picked up some of the older copies like at a library.
Yeah.
And the translation is just awful. So that might make a difference, like a more modern translation.
It's not the translation for me is not.
It.
Yeah, the translation in this case isn't the problem. Obviously this is the first time I'm reading it, so I can't compare it to other translations, but the one I've been reading is fantastic. The language, it's the kind of thing where I can't tell how much of the awesomeness of the writing is due to the original author and how much of it is due to the amazing job that she did translating it. So I'm going to look up, it's, you guys can talk amongst yourselves. I'm just going to...
Sure.
It's the Edith Grossman translation. I think it was new like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
It's really, really good.
I
think she's considered to be one of the better ones.
If I have a white whale, it's Crime and Punishment.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
I haven't read that either.
And I like Dostoevsky. Senior year of high school, we had to read it, and I didn't like it then, and so I think it has a bad taste in my mouth. But no, I like a lot of his stuff, but just not that one.
War and Peace for me. I want to desperately finish that and love it. I do, but I can't.
Yeah.
I've read that.
Same thing with Anna Karenina.
Yeah, I know.
I love Anna Karenina. I just can't finish it.
Yeah, it's hard. It's just it's a lot to get through.
I've done the Count of Monte Cristo twice. That is a
nice. Yeah.
Oh,
and then of course we know my love for Game of Thrones.
Oh, let's not say love and Game of Thrones in the same sentence.
Yeah. Next topic.
I think we went off on that earlier. We have a comment too from Quotidian Light. She says, "I've been rereading Anna Karenina every 5 to 10 years since middle school.
Oh wow!
The books I read definitely affect what I want to write and the goals I have for myself, but I have to be careful. After reading Virginia Woolf, I tend to get comma happy. In the book How to Read a Book, Mortimer considers the first pass of a book elementary reading."
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Maybe she can help us get through that book.
Yeah. Are you a fan of Virginia Woolf, Lisa, since you like stream of consciousness?
I am. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I read Mrs. Dalloway, and I couldn't do it. I want to see if maybe she's got some other stuff out there that's good though, because I liked her style. It was just the going. Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have to give her another shot, because I hear a lot of people talking good stuff about her.
So, Lisa, do you want to tell us a little bit about your books?
Oh, well, I have 2 out. I have a 30-something girl, which is, it's about a 30-something girl.
About a 17-year-old hitchhiker.
Transvestite. That'd be fun. No, I definitely write about human nature, human resilience. So I have a collection of short stories out that is basically, I wasn't quite at the stream of consciousness yet in those stories, but they basically talk about the inner workings of the mind, our fears, secrets, all of that, and each little story kind of talks about those fears and secrets and how we hide them and think about them, and it's basically the psychology of thought. A 30-something girl is mainly like a journey. It's about hitting rock bottom and not really wanting to wake up ever again, and somehow finding a way to find happiness again. And really the lesson of the book is that you don't have to do anything. It's a choice. You kind of have to brainwash yourself. You just have to say, I'm going to be happy. There's no magic formula or anything like that. So that's what those books are about. I have 4 books that I'm writing right now. So one is about Buddy, and I won't talk about that one because y'all grow up. It's a comedy. No, I'm just kidding. And then I'm writing a book actually that was inspired by my boss. It's kind of about a busy professional and a little bit about myself. I was a workaholic for a long time, didn't have a life at all, and I see so many people get to retirement, and it's scary to get to that part in their life because they've had no life, and now that's all that they have. They have no more work anymore. They have to fill their days with something. So I'm writing a story about a lawyer who, retires and he has nothing. And, it's basically he fumbles around with depression and trying to find a way to live during the last chapters of his life. So I write very uplifting tales, as you can see. Yeah. Most people want to split their wrist.
Fiction.
And I don't think you mentioned it, but the anthology is called Contemplations, right?
Yes, Contemplations. Yes, and it'll be on Audible soon. So I'm very excited. Both of my books are in production. So.
And who's narrating those?
Contemplations is done by Holly Jackson and Lori. Oh my God, what's her last name? I used the same narrator Michael
Fiala.
did for his. Yeah.
Yep,
That's
Lori
it.
Fiala.
Yeah, I'll
You
let you
couldn't
pronounce
get
it. Good
you
job.
couldn't get George Takei for those.
No, I was trying to get.
Or
I
Scott
wanted
Frick.
Neil. I wanted Neil Gaiman to do a 30-something girl
Oh,
because
sure.
I'm telling you, I think he could have really done something magical with that. So he wasn't available for a royalty share. So
That's
Andy
too bad.
is.
It's a golden touch.
yeah.
We've got Andy Muscola in the comments.
Oh, hi, Andy.
Says, great to see LM Stull on your show. Looking forward to reading her book Contemplations.
Yeah, wonderful.
And Quotidian Light had said War and Peace. I think she's probably talking about her white whale there.
Yeah.
I'm doing a read along this August, though, and hope to finally read it.
Awesome.
Cool.
So there you go. Kill that whale. And
So where can people find your books, Lisa?
Everywhere.
Okay.
Yeah,
Just for the
Barnes &
audience.
Noble, Amazon, Smashwords, iTunes, Kobo, Books A Million. I mean, wherever you can buy books, I am there. Yeah, bringing their establishment down. Yeah.
and your
And do you have a
website is lmstull.com, right?
Yes, lmstull.com. Yes. Yeah.
And then, so I know you were tweeting and Facebooking and everything else that you had some free copies of your book for people in the comments tonight?
Yes, everyone who leaves a comment, I will give them free copies of both of my books in whatever format they would like. So.
Which is awesome. So Archer and Michael, you better get in there and comment. I commented.
Yeah, Archer's
I've already got
"Yay."
Contemplations.
Yeah. Well, I'll give it to you again.
So for anybody
Yeah.
who wants, I think, to get a hold of you for that, they could probably send you a message on Facebook or email you at lisa
At
lmstull.com.
That's it. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay, so anybody else have any sort of final comments? We're coming up on 40 minutes.
Nope, I'm good.
No? Okay, so thanks to everybody who showed up in the comments tonight. Be sure to let Lisa know if you're interested in a copy of her book and what format you'd like to see it in. And we will see you next week. And thanks so much for coming, Lisa. It's been great having you.
Thank you for having me. Thank you. I had fun.